Thank you very much. And all of these texts, we created them, and they are texts that, well, they are fictional texts that students, an arbitrary student studying mathematics will encounter throughout their degree. So we try to make them as authentic as possible. And the final section for each chapter will be a glossary. Now we are working with a student intern to help us create this bilingual glossary with the translation in Chinese Mandarin, the pronunciation, and how to read out the recording, an example, and an example from the lecture notes. So these are the 7 sections for each chapter. We've got 8 different chapters, one for each of the one for each chapter from my module. So let me stop sharing my screen.
Great. So we'll come back to myself in this the screen share swap world. We return to the slides we were at a moment ago. So hopefully that's coming through. That's where you saw that slide more before, some minutes ago. This is where we have been, and you saw that slide, and we went to some extracts, bullet point 3, of course. So that's what we've done now. So to close things off, let's just make a few comments about what we've seen there and a couple of other comments as well. So we feel we want to sort of talk a little bit about the pedagogical underpinnings of TALOM, the academic language of mathematics. We call it TALOM. And hopefully you've been able to see some of that in the short review or preview that Kostas has just given us. So at the macro level, we are very sensitive to those first 3 sub-bullet points, the disciplinarity of mathematics. We've touched on this, Kostas and I, in our narratives throughout today's presentation, but to list some of them there is a certain kind of shape to the thinking processes of mathematics. Deductive reasoning, it is an inherently abstract, non-real world discipline. And that's not to say that mathematics is not present in the real world, that the universe sometimes appears to have or does have some mathematical structures underlying it. But I think it's reasonable to posit that mathematics is, at least in some sense, and much of it is, at least in some sense, a highly abstract set of connections between different kinds of patterns. That's the nature of the discipline, as opposed to, let's say, the sciences, which of course are comments about stuff in the real world. So that may be the social sciences, the humanities, or other disciplines. Okay, we've mentioned the role of symbolic language that decentralizes or decenters human language, and that's our first. That's the disciplinarity of mathematics, and we hope that we are in our book TALOM very to that. Linguistic concepts, of course, should underpin things, and they do. I'll cover that in a moment, and as well as that, of course, learning-based approaches as well. Bloom's taxonomy will be familiar to many of us. So to turn to that second sub-bullet point, linguistic concepts, I'll just run through a few of the things that we have as pedagogical, conceptual, theoretical underpinnings. The first one there, second point on the slide, of course, is the rich and hierarchical structure of language. You hopefully were able to see in the extract that we endeavor to cover language in all its manifestations across the various levels at which it exists: phonological, morphological, lexical, phrasal, discourse, functional, etc. We also are keeping in mind fluency and range, accuracy, complexity, appropriacy. So they're a fairly kind of common tetrad that's out there in much of the literature in terms of how to think about language in action, that we need to have a range of expressions and be fluent in producing them. We are aiming for accuracy. In academic speaking, there is a complexity, or the language is often complex or can be complex because it is trying to capture complex ideas. And there's also the parameter of appropriacy. So we're trying to keep that tetrad in mind in the balance of exercises, or what we choose as an exercise. I think we've mentioned the nature of the language types that we try to cover. Obviously, mathematical terminology has a preeminent focus, and Kostas in his review mentioned other sort of like we've called it STEM academic phraseology that may not be mathematics specific or tightly tied only to mathematics, but maybe slightly wider, that we, yeah. And as well as that, in the final sections, of course, the academy is not simply a written endeavor. We speak to each other in many different ways, formal and informal, as we go about our various roles in the academy as students, as lecturers, or in whatever role it may be. So the dialogues, written though they are, although we're, as Kostas said, we will have these recorded and performed, allow us to break into some of the more informal phraseology that you might find typically in a UK academic context. Perhaps there are going to be different colloquial forms of the world's Englishes in different parts of the world, but we do nevertheless very much try to address the informal spoken interactional side of things as it manifests itself in mathematics. And we also draw on various sort of well-developed theories. Construction grammar has been around since about the sort of 80s, and has a pedagogical form, pedagogical construction grammar. We inform the book with that, and SFL, of course, systemic functional linguistics, which also has many insights to yield for us working in the intersection of language and the disciplines. Time is moving on, so I'll just note these in passing. Lexical bundles or multi-word forms. You may have seen some of those in the preview. Obviously, that we've got derived, derivation, derivative as a word family, but the changes of those words inhabit or work with other words, or highly likely to co-occur with other words. So that's just a brief example of what we mean by a lexical bundle. There are many different types of these, of course, collocation as others. The written communication, we have these scripts and recordings, so hopefully it's a multi, it's an AV, it's a written, visual, and oral experience as well, this oral experience as well, and a balance of activities with different kinds of answer types, and individual and classroom based. Okay, so quite a list there across those two last slides. There are a few more we could have put on, but those are the approaches, orientations, attitudes, theories, models, concepts that we're trying to bear in mind. We'll head back to Kostas. Hopefully the mic issue, if it's more than just myself who are experiencing it, hopefully that's been resolved. Here is some material from the students who've used some of the book. Back to yourself, Kostas.
Yeah, apologies, guys, for the connection issue. I think it's an internet connection issue. Sometimes it happens. I hope you can hear me now.
It's good now. Fine. It's good now.
That's good. That's good. So, as I said, we've used this first chapter in my lectures last semester with 500 students, over 500 students, and we asked for some feedback from the students. And here are just some quotes. I think we've got 3 slides here, Dick, so if you can just scroll through them.
Sure.
Let's give everyone a minute to
Sure,
read.
so just a couple of minutes for each slide. Slide 1, let's take a moment or two. Okay, so I'll move to the second slide now. Okay, and I'll move to the third slide now.
And as we can see, there's a big theme on communication. Communication has been improved, which is what we wanted, make the students better communicators to better understand the lectures, better ask questions, become better presenters in the future.
Indeed so. So we won't go to breakout rooms right now, or perhaps not at all. We'll just move to the end of things and perhaps come back to this or not in the next few moments. But I think the idea here is that questions that all of us, Kostas and myself included, of course, might ask ourselves, just in terms of the idea of collaboration. So although we've been speaking for the last few moments about this particular book, as I hope we've made clear, this book is the result of sustained collaborative activity across more than 2 years. I would not have been able. I could see at the beginning that there's something that this should exist, and I wanted to do it. There's no way I could have done this on my own, and I think that's true also of Kostas and Shui, because it represents the intersection of two very distinct disciplinary areas, i.e. mathematics and academic English or academic languages and literature, however we wish to speak about this world of EAP, the world of text language in its academic manifestation. So those are questions, of course, that we can all ask ourselves about collaboration in sessional work, as Kostas and I have done and continue to do. I think we're in the closing slides. What I think we've said today, or tried to say, is something very, very positive about at least one collaboration that has gone very well. Certainly from my perspective, it's been extremely enriching and powerful for me personally and professionally, but also I think impactful as this Talom product indicates, hopefully for the students and indeed many students. So we are, I guess, suggesting that, as bullet point 1 states, well-selected sustained EAP and disciplinary collaborations can indeed yield supportive developmental ways of working that benefit practitioners, students, departments, the academy, the world. I'm slightly overstate things there, I don't know, but a positive effect for people. That's certainly been our experience, I believe. And how did we do it? It's kind of obvious, but we met up, we chatted and shared and got to know each other. We did a few small things to kind of get the sense of what we could do, and we built that to the level of what we think is quite a substantial contribution to things. And it's a final point there. So hopefully this case study demonstrates the affordances, the positive affordances of collaborating across the divide. If it is a divide, that's not my view now. I think that was heavily scare quoted. It's a synergy, right? It's two intersecting circles on a Venn diagram. They are distinct in orientation and knowledge base, perhaps, but they're not distinct or divided in how they can support each other. Indeed, the very opposite, of course. That's all, folks. There are our respective email addresses, of course, at the University of Leeds. And if I stop sharing my screen, with a bit of luck, we can all see each other. And there we go. So we'll pause there. Jenny, maybe you want to give everyone a rest from my dulcet tones and say a few words, perhaps. But we'll stop there with thanks to all, at least for.
Thanks very much. Gosh, what an amazing resource that you've produced there. It's really impressive. And I think incredible that you've worked so well with the students, because quite often we think of collaboration and we omit the key link there, which is having the students involved. I'm just going to leave this open for questions and comments for a little while in the chat, so people can either respond or ask you a bit further about any of these points.
That's super. Shall I, back with my Barleap online events hat on, I'll just pause and indeed stop the recording now. I think that's our working practice when questions come along. So I will